10 misplays that I often see on Steam. Um, okay. And so, yeah, this can be like maybe a card, maybe a milestone, maybe, usually milestone is a good thing, but yeah. Okay, let's begin with a bad ecology experts. And what that basically means is you play ecology experts into something like livestock or fish or even birds on yourself if your other prelate also has plant production. And these are really bad plays in general. I mean, it's nice to get a point per gen, um, but you are basically just getting that out of your prelate, plus you have to pay for the card. If the card was free, it would be fine. But like paying for livestock, which you've already kept, yeah, but then that's fine. But you pay 13 more, you get two production at least with that one. But like birds, birds is worse than livestock if you do it on yourself, because you have to pay 9 and getting like a trading money for points in a build, even if it's a lot of points, is not good. It's not the worst play. I have done it. I have won with it. Because it's not the biggest mistake, but I don't do it anymore because you just find out it's not worth the points. Like the economy is much more valuable. And the same thing goes for other cards that are in. Like, I mean, these are the plant hitting ones. These are the more controversial ones. But even playing something like grass, because you want the three plants, is not worth it. It's you want to play algae, kelp farming, trees, and maybe farming. I think those are the key ones with like two plant production two plant production plus is what you want to play with it, pretty much. Okay, moving on. Number 9, closely related, the one plant production cards, especially the early ones. Lichen and adapted lichen. These two in particular. Um, these are just not good plays early, and I mean this especially is landing on one plant production total. If you are Ecoline, you can afford to play one of these maybe because I think Ecoline needs the three plant production, even though their economy is pretty terrible. But one plant production rarely does anything good for you, because you need 8 gens. Let's say you need 5 generations before you can like play an ocean and pick up some more plants to like play a greenery, or play something that gives you 3 4 plants. That's still too much time for people. People just have time to blow your plants up. One plant production is pretty useless, and the cards that get you that early are pretty inefficient. Moving on to number 8, also closely related, are inefficient production cards that people play early. So, Phobos Payhaven, Callisto Penal Mines, what's that? House Printing. Just do the math on those. They don't pay back for like a long time, like 8 generations for most of them. So that's the whole game, which means they're not economic cards. The Jovian one and Phobos can be played as point cards. House Printing can be a bad steel dump, essentially. If your mining guild is fine. But there's a ton of these that are just usually a combination of points and production. And I see people play this early. Never play this early. It's not worth it. Like, it's usually because you're overflowing in titanium and steel. Just be patient. Wait. You'll get a better card to play early. Uh, just stockpile your steel. Don't play these. You're gonna need that steel. You're gonna want a city at some point. For the space cards, there's probably some asteroids, some better Jovians like asteroid mining, which costs 6 more and gives you 2 titanium instead of 3 cash. So, yeah, number 8. For number 7, and is the old Sabotage, a rich company. So Sabotage is a great card to keep in your first gen, right? It's when it hurts more. So like if I see it in my opening hand, I always keep it and I always play Gen 1, unless I am a poor company or a need money company and I suddenly realize my opponent is Terractor. At which point losing 4 probably hurts me more than losing 7 for them. And I do see this happen a lot, and when I'm on the director position or the Gregor position, I'm just happy. Like, yeah, you wasted for cash that you probably needed, and I don't even have enough cards to use all my cash in the first gen sometimes as director or credit card. So it often affects you more than the other person, and it's even worse if it's three player. I don't use Sabotage at all on three player. Um, what you want to do, because I mean you already kept it, you didn't know they were going to be director, just save it for a milestone battle. That's usually when I do it. When you see the milestone is close, or maybe one of uh, the track terraforming rating, the track milestones. So I don't want to use milestones wrong here, but yeah, the prices on the tracks, save it for that. And when your opponent starts playing that turn, when you close to the ocean, or you're close to the on the temperature track, or the temperature on the oxygen track, and they start playing slow, just that's when you use Sabotage. It's a free action that you really need, because it's gonna cost one, and then you're gonna like take an action for your opponent probably. So yeah, that's what you want to do with Sabotage when you see a Reach Corp. At number 6, I've talked about these many times, the loans. Both investment loan and the prelude loan. I think the prelude loan is outright a mistake to play. It's one of my least favorite preludes. I've had arguments on my prelude tier list about it, but I'm not convinced by it. And then investment loan is a great card late because there's basically no downside, but even middle game, even early, if you want to steal a milestone and surprise your opponent, it's definitely something you could do. Just don't play it early for production. Just wait a turn, play your production, hold on to investment loan, and yeah, when you play it later, it's gonna be much better. So yeah, don't do the early loans. The early loans are pretty horrible. At number 5, a classic mistake, the Desperation Standard Project. So this is, you have no card draw, you see your opponent is doing things, you're sitting on a bunch of cash, you don't see any good cards in the draft, and it's Gen 3, and then you just start doing like cities, or like the classic one is the 2-card Ocean on Tharsis, which is actually the only one that I find sort of decent to do. But even then, like, those cards are not good. You just wasted all your money, and like, just fucking Murphy's Law. You're gonna see some good cards the next gen that you're not gonna be able to play now. Like, you're gonna have the best draft of your life the next gen if you do that. But especially, don't do the cities, don't do the SP greeneries. Just don't freak out because you haven't been able to use your cash. Just wait for the right cards. And yeah, cities especially are pretty horrible to do with this. Okay, number 4, overdrawing. This is one of the most common things I see. Is people, they develop their science early, and then they start drawing cards, and they're getting more science and more science, and they just keep developing science, and they can't keep up their economy, and suddenly they're drawing 3 extra cards per turn, but they have no cash to play them. And just remember, like, a good science strategy has to go with a good economy. Like, getting cards is great, but you need to pay for them after. So you need to, like, if you, I get getting your first card draw early, but after that you need to focus on economy before you get your next card draw. And I especially, like, you can set people up in the draft, like, you see a big production and a card draw, you take the production, you let them take the card draw, and they're gonna play it. And it just stifles them, and they end up like finishing the game just with like 15 cards that they sell on the last gen to play 2 more. So yeah, overdrawing or overdeveloping your card economy is a big mistake. Of course, if you do this with a rich corp, it's much easier, but with like the poorer corps, it can be like you have to sort of like know when you're like able to play your hand. And it's something that you kind of get a feeling when you learn how to do. But yeah, yeah, don't do too much science without developing your economy. Next up, at number 3, we have the Milestone Suicide. And so, what does the Milestone Suicide mean? Well, That means you basically destroy your economy to get a milestone. And I can't stress this enough. Like in 2 players, if you get your one milestone, you're fine. If you get like swept on the milestones, you just have to go for 2 awards, and then you're probably fine. Like it's 10 points down, right? Because your opponent's gonna get the other award, but you can still recover. If you develop your economy well, that's better. And so, I mean, you should always push for one, but not like the biggest suicides I see is the major one, where people like place 2 standard project cities, or something like Phobos and a standard project city to get it. That's probably the worst one. On Tharsis also planner, sometimes people just like draw and stop playing cards. You realize they stop playing cards so they can take planner. This is probably fine to do for 1 generation. More than that, you're probably bad. And if you now have 16 cards and no economy, you probably wasted some time. Elysian is probably the better one for milestones. Like there are many ways to commit suicide there, but generally I see sometimes like I do see sometimes people buy bad heat cards or take the standard project energy, or bad plan cards to get it. If you do one of those, it's probably fine. If you do 2 of those, it's probably not good. And then on Hellas, Rim Settler, bad Jovians, like even Jovian multipliers I've seen early to get the third one. And Polar Explorer, again, like usually you have to do a standard project city to get that, unless you're a very green corp or you get lucky with the special tiles, right? So those are the ones that I see people just completely commit suicide over, and with milestones. And so yeah, don't do that. Okay, and number 2, I have talked about this many times. Gen 1 Soletta. Gen 1 Soletta, I, especially with no additional hit, is a pretty horrible play. It's not an inefficient card, it's just that the 7 is such a bad number, and it ends up being like an overinvestment without being enough into hit. Because the thing is, like Moho, for example, Moho area, Gen 1 is great. You invest 20, you get a hit bump every other gen, right? And you're gonna get one Gen 3, right? Because Gen 2 you have 4, Gen 3 you have 8. Soletta, you're gonna get that when every gen starting Gen 3, right? But it's a 35 cash investment, and so you're just invested into heat. You probably can't develop anything else, which means you're gonna have to hope for some good plant cards, or that someone does the plants, which means they're gonna rush, like they're gonna win the rush because plants score better, and they're just more cost efficient. And you don't even get that extra TR until Gen 3, so you like your cash eco is dead. You play Soletta and now you're poor for 3 generations, and then by Gen 3 you can start doing things. But yeah, I don't like Soletta. I think it's an over investment into heat. Generally, I'd rather usually when I develop heat, it's usually like Moho area and a prelude or something like that, or I get the bumps on the track after that and get to 6. But that's all I want to pay for heat, really. And then like people can respond so easily to it because just they're gonna keep every heat asteroid and they're gonna throw it at the Earth, the Mars, sorry. So and then you're just left with all this heat that it's useless. So yeah. And finally, number 1, the Olympus Mons City on Elysian. And yeah, this is something that I see incredibly often, either with a prelude or even with a like a city card or even a standard project. People just love to get those 3 cards. And listen, 3 cards is probably the best pickup in the entire maps of Mars. Well, I think on the new ones there's colonies, so that might be better. But that and the Hellas Ocean are probably the 2 best pickups in the whole map, in the whole of Terraforming Mars. But this is just a bad city spot. Remember, I mean, you get in 3 cards, sure, but remember you wanna get at like usually 3 points out of a city for it to be worth it. And in this spot, you're already out on that, right? But more importantly, because you're surrounded, as you see on the map here, by 2 spots with steel, you're usually gonna get the mining cards. And then you can also get like commercial district or industrial zone on it, or even because there's good rewards in nuke zone and restricted area. And so now you have a 1 point city. You pay $25 for a point and 3 cards. Would you pay that? Like, you see a card that says draw 3 cards and has a point. It costs 25. You wouldn't pay that. No one would pay that, right? But that's what you did, and I don't know why people don't notice it. The other thing is, even if you get your greenery, the oceans that are these 3 oceans here, you can see that they're bad oceans because they don't have any. There's one plant on the bottom one and nothing on the top ones, right? So they usually go last. In Elysium, usually the 2 that are separate go first, and then the ones on the border. Sometimes like you see the top 3, the ones with the card and the steel. So if you place any greeneries afterwards, you're not even gonna get the ocean like payback bonus. So it's really just a horrible spot for a city. I don't even like it that much for a greenery. Obviously, it's a lot better for a greenery, but because you're like, the greenery is already 2 points, right? And if you manage to put a city on this spot here, Ulysses Patera, that could be a 3 point city with better location. I still don't like going there. Obviously, you should go for like both sides of the 2 ocean, the 2 separate oceans, the 3 plant spot, and then on the other side, wherever you can. It varies what's more convenient. I usually go for the 1 plant spot, but it could be something else. That's where you want to go with your cities on Elysium. And these 3 city spot is really terrible. I mean, really think about it. If you saw a card on the draft that was 25 for 3 cards and a point, not a city, because that's like a city can be much better. That city that you place there is gonna be 1 point. I guess 1 production too, if it's standard. 1 production, 3 cards, a point. Would you pay 25 for that? You wouldn't. No one would. That should cost around 12 or 14. But yeah, anyway, that's all I have for today. Those are my top 10 misplays on Steam. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, see you next time.